Welcome, family. Welcome to another live stream. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. I hope your Shabbat was beautiful. I'm saying Shabbat Shalom to all those in the world who are still in Shabbat for the day. Those of us who have just made it out of the Shabbat, I'm saying Shabbat Shalom to you as well because I didn't get to say it earlier. Okay. If you notice the title for today's Torah, for today's live stream, it's titled The Work, Torah, the Woman, and the Egg. Um, just to give you a taste of what I've been doing today as we, exit the Shabbat. For most of us, I think, wherever you are in the world today, most of us are probably out of the Shabbat unless you're someplace on the West Coast right now. And of course, our prayers going out to all four corners, Israelites, all four corners of the world, hoping that we are all able to come back into the truth of the scriptures and what they mean for us. Okay, and what our role is in this last day of the last day. Every time I say that, I seem to have a little smile on my face because honestly, it's a great time to be alive. I know a lot of us have fallen for this narrative that we need to be victimized, that we need to speak a certain way as to uh, showcase or highlight victimization over our lives. But I've taken a different route in my daily narrative to the best of my ability, and that is to recognize the reasons why we are where we are today and do something about it. Okay, to all of the folks who have just now started supporting this channel, welcome to the family, welcome to the fold. I appreciate you greatly. We appreciate you greatly because the more that we support channels like this, the more that YouTube's robotic AI analytical algorithms have to push this sort of content to the forefront. And it's a blessing to get more balance. I know many of us can log into YouTube and we see all sorts of decrepit, ratchet content that doesn't serve any of us. Well, it shouldn't serve any of us any good. But I know that a lot of us are moving in a way in our daily lives where we're looking for some sort of outlet, some sort of entertaining piece of content that will help get our minds off of our day to day struggles, our day to day strife. And it would be good to find comfort in the word. It honestly would be good. For instance, this past year, I found myself singing Psalm 103. I found myself singing Psalm 103. Bless Yahweh, oh my being, and all that is within me. Blessed is his set apart name. Bless Yahweh, oh my being, and do not forget all his dealings. Who forgives all your crookednesses, who heals all of your disease, who redeems your life from destruction, who crowns you with loving commitment and compassion, who satisfies your desire with good. Your youth is renewed like the eagles. Yahweh is doing righteousness and right ruling for all the oppressed. You see, our praises. So finding and figuring out a way to comfort yourself through using the scriptures and singing songs of praise that you don't have to worry about writing because they're already written for you is something that I found value in. It's something that I like to do whether I make it known or not. So you can do the same thing and you can begin to sing the song praise, begin to look deeper within the scriptures and many other ways, alternative ways, not to try to formulate an alternative truth, but to just look at the complexities of the scriptures and find the life in the scriptures, because life as we live it today is very complex. Would you agree with that? Life as we see it today is very complex, and there usually isn't just one mode to life. Just like in music, there are many different modes, okay, many different keys of life. And when we learn music from the standpoint of theory, and we learn music from a more conductive orchestral perspective, uh, a compositional perspective, we begin to see just how complex music actually is. We start to realize the different tonations, the different tonal approaches to music. We realize that music is a reflection of life. And life should be very musical. It should be rhythmic. It should be vibrational. This is where we get high vibe from, right? So, what's up with this title? What's up with this title, bruh? What's going on, bruh? What's up, brother King? What's really good? Well, as more of us begin to join the live stream, and we begin to get our seat, if I may, take your seat, pull up your chair, get comfortable, and we're gonna definitely get in to this lesson. I hope to be as brief as possible, as always, with the lesson. And of course, I hope that many people are able to join in on the lesson and enjoy what is to be brought out today. We're going to be going over a few scriptures, and you see a common theme with all of the scriptures that are going to be brought out today. In that, we're being asked, depending on what version of the scriptures you're going to be reading, you're going to either be seeing the word keep. We're going to focus the key words today. I like that. Key words of today's lesson. Today's lesson. Let me put that in. First word is keep. Keep. The second word is guard. Okay. Key words of today's lesson: keep and guard. Now, what does that have to do with Torah? What does that have to do with the woman? What does that have to do with the work? Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into it. First of all, what's the work? What is the work? What does that even mean? Well, the work is the Torah. The work is that great narrative, that great command, that great conglomeration of vibration and word and thought that was extended from the Most High to us as Hebrew Israelite people in order to help be lights and way showers within this world. First and foremost, that's what the work that I'm talking about is. It isn't the type of work of going into the 9 to 5. It isn't that form of work. We're talking about the divine work that was set apart, that matched the frequency of why we were created in the first place, in order to be light showers to the world. Now, this was a job that was commissioned solely to the Hebrew Israelite people, primarily the Hebrew Israelite man. And I have to make a distinction about that statement, because when you go and you look at the words to keep, when you look at the word to guard, that is usually a position and a role that a man takes upon himself, or even young boys were to keep and guard. Okay. When if we were still in positions of shepherding, for instance, we would guard or keep our sheep. We would tend to or keep or guard our livestock. Many of us still in the city right now, or in the cities right now, so we have to keep and guard ourselves in other ways. We have to keep our head clean, our nose clean, excuse me. We have to keep our head on a swivel. We have to guard ourselves as we're walking from point A to B, through the hood, on the way to the liquor store, on the way to the grocery store, on the way to the laundromat. We have to pay attention, is what keeping your head on a swivel means, right? So what does it mean when we're elevating that perspective into one of divinity? Well, it means that we're now taking the bull by the horns, if I may. We're taking the horse by the reins and we're saying, okay, even though this is my environment, whatever that environment is, I'm looking at myself as the divine being that I was created to be. And now I'm searching through the scripts in order to get more clarity on what it is I'm actually supposed to do within my purpose that I was set apart to uphold. Now, when we talk about the work, we have to realize that this work, it 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 has been dispensed. It has been dispensed to us over a certain amount of time. Let me see, because I kind of want to stand. I want to sit up as well. It has been dispensed to us throughout a certain amount of time. And each generation of us was supposed to guard and keep that truth, that work. And we were supposed to continue to grow and build in that work. It's almost like inheriting a job from your father, a trade. Okay. When you look at tradesmen, for instance, tradesmen are usually multi generational individuals who have learned a craft or a skill, have taken that craft or skill and have honed in on it, so much so to the point where they become masters of that craft or masters of that trade. Once they become masters of that trade, they begin utilizing that craft or that trade in order to make a living. Once a living is made off that craft or that trade, then there are normally children born. And once those children, primarily sons in this case, we're talking about craftsmen, once those sons are born, there comes a point in that child's life where he begins to sit at his father's knee, or he begins to sit in the workhouse, in the warehouse, and in the room where the trade is being conducted out in the field, wherever the trade is actually being nurtured through action and through the working of it. And that son begins to analyze and observe his father working in that craft of that trade. When it is time for the son to come of age, he usually then takes that craft that his father has and he begins to work within it as well. And that continues to replicate until that trade becomes a inheritance, until that trade becomes business, in the sense that the subsequent children that are born through each generation, unless they have a deep desire to be something else outside of what it is their forefathers have been, that child then takes up the mantle of his father, meaning the purpose and the dedication of that craft trade that his father has utilized so long in his life. And then he begins to incorporate that craft and trade into his own life and works it himself. Doing multi generationally enables the family, that lineage, to innovate and to begin to use that craft in such a way where when those innovations meet the craft, there tends to be a certain inventive prowess that comes about. And people can begin to corner markets and do all those sorts of things that would dictate that those individuals come from a long line of that particular craft and trade. And eventually, what ends up happening is if that trade is popular between multiple lineages, let's just focus on one people group, but multiple lineages, then what begins to happen is something called trade secrets. And when a trade secret is innovated, it's usually what? It's guarded and it's kept very close by the family, or the man within that lineage who was used to innovate it. Okay. And so what we have is trade secrets that, even though the trade is popular, a trade secret is how one does that thing over another, or how one executes a task within their workflow as compared to someone else who is in the same trade, but who would activate and utilize their own sense of trade secret. Okay. And so why is that so important? Because usually trade secrets are what separate one way of doing something from another way of doing something. And if a family or a man is hired to do a task based off of his trade secret, or based on what he has learned from his father, who learned from his father, who learned from his father, and that thing is desirable within the community, then that would negate another person who learned that same trade from their father to then be able to compete or to be hired for the task at hand. So that's where trade secrets begin to be prevalent and important. Now, what does this have to do with the work? And welcome to all the family who is just joining the live stream. I hope that you're able to stay along and go along for the ride, okay? And Shabbat Shalom to you all if it's still daytime where you are. This lesson is going to be a little bit later, but it's right on time. Okay. What does this have to do with the work or the Torah? Well, when we read in Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6, we see one of the first promises that the men of Israel received from Yahweh when we were to uphold the law, statutes, and commands. And what upholding the law, statutes, and commands would mean for us multiple generations into the future, beyond what the early Hebrew Israelites were able to see themselves, if they are to guard the law, statutes, and commands. And I'll say we, I'll include this present generation and the past generation. I don't like oftentimes when we say they as if they are not us. Okay, so please know that I'm very cognizant of what I'm saying, but for the sake of the times, to separate the times in a sense, I say they. Okay, so just let me be clear on that. But we, our forefathers, when they got the Torah, they were given promises. And if they were to continue in that promise and pass on what it was they learned and received to the next generation in all seriousness and truth, and made it known the value of the Torah, and made it known the value of keeping the Torah for the sake of our nation, I can pretty much guarantee you that we wouldn't be in captivity right now. But it was the fact that once Torah was received by Moshe, and once Torah was deliberated amongst the rest of the children of Israel, Torah, it seems, almost immediately became devalued. And instead of us wanting to keep Torah and work through Torah and find out and figure out its nuances, just like any other trade that a man takes into himself, whether it's iron smelting, whether it's gold casting, whether it's bronze casting, whether it's construction, beam build, whether it's fishing, whether it's livestock rearing and tending, whether it's tapestry weaving, whatever that trade is, we were supposed to 100% take that trade of Torah and keep it intently and keep it forever. I know that's kind of extreme, right? But that's what we were to do. And one thing that is, um, I don't know. Hey, Awakening Goddess. Thank you, Queen Sister. Yeah, I don't know if when the live stream, when YouTube tells me I have an unstable connection, if y'all can still hear me. So please forgive me when you saw me stop, okay? But I'm registered to multiple websites that deal with genealogy. And I got a hit in my email yesterday or the other day in pertinence to one of my ancestors who was down in Mississippi. So for those who don't know, my paternal side is from Mississippi. Okay, I still got a lot of family, ton of family in Mississippi. All right, but if you didn't know, my grandfather, my dad's dad, he was born in 1891. Okay, so my paternal grandfather was born 1891. His dad was born 1871. Okay, so I'm very connected to a time that has been long gone. Okay, or so it would appear, because you see where we are now. I mean, I'm speaking to you through a computer screen, and you're able to see this live stream when my grandfather didn't even know what no computer was. Okay, so but I don't think he did. So that's my point. And this would have been considered some sort of high form of magic back in when they were young men, is my point. Okay. You want to talk to somebody, you had to use your sixth sense, you had to use your extra sensory perception. Or you had to wait for that person to come and be in front of you. I know a lot of us hear them old school stories about how the doctor would come through the town and he would pop up when everybody needed him, as if he got a letter through the airwave or something. But a lot of these doctors, they were adept at staying connected through extrasensory perception. That's ESP, for short. And so a lot of us, due to the advent of technology, have not utilized and worked that ESP muscle out the way that we would have in the past. Side note. And so that's why it seems to be more trickery involved with, even today, we could be like, man, bro, I was just thinking about you. You get a call on the phone or you get a text come through, man, bro, I was just thinking about you. Man, sis, I was just thinking about you. How'd you know I was thinking about you? Well, that's ESP. That's the same thing the doctors and nurses back in the day used to do, the midwives and everybody. That's the milkman, everybody. That's how we used to get down. And you would execute or utilize that ESP in order to communicate over great distances. And then before you know it, that person you was thinking about be at your front door, dropping off some produce, some livestock or something to you. So that's a side note. But back to the inheritance real quick through genealogy. I got a hit talking about one of my great grandmothers. And so I went into the hit, and it turned out to be a census form that I hadn't seen. And I hadn't either seen it or I hadn't seen this one. It was from 1950. So by this time, my great grandfather, he was 84 years old. So, okay. His wife, my great grandmother, she was around 74. So, okay. So this was in 1950. So my great grandfather, who was on this census in 1950, he was born in 1871. Okay, so just get this. Now on the census, how it was in Mississippi, a lot of folks lived around one another. Okay, it's a lot of famous surnames. I'm not gonna name drop right now, but when you go back in the far enough of Mississippi, especially where my folks is from, you can see a family tree. Like in my instance, I see my family tree and I see the different surnames, but all of those names was usually together. So just like the nation of Israel, when we had different families belonging to the same bloodlines that was in those areas, in those different allotments of land, normally you wasn't allowed to go marry outside of your allotment of land. You had to marry within your tribe. And so you would see this person, son of this person, marrying daughter of this person. And if there was a census that was taken, you would see how close they actually lived together. So it'd be like, oh, wow, y'all was right around the way from each other. And so that's what the census reveals in one aspect. But what I found interesting about this particular census is that by the time 1950 came along, the government wanted to not only know who was in your household, but what your occupation was. So on this census, I could see my great grandfather at 84 years old, and then his wife, my great grandmother, and then right under them, see my grandfather as a 54-year-old man or so. So he's right there under my great grandfather on the census with all of his children that was born at that time or those who were already grown and outside of his family. So what do I mean by that? My grandfather was there under his parents. His household was there. And then few of his grown children were listed under him on the census. And everybody was living together pretty much in close proximity. But when it went to the occupation, this is where I was like, oh, wow. They say it skips a generation, right? Well, I already knew what I'm about to tell you, but to see it written down in that sequential order like that, it kind of drove home the point of what I'm about to be talking about in this study, in this lesson. So, my great grandfather, he was listed as a tender of cows and fruits, a tender of cows and fruits. So he was a livestock holder. He had cows. He had fruits that he was growing and produce. That's how he made his living. Now I knew that, but to see it on the paper is pretty cool. My great grandfather, word was that he was a molasses producer. So he produced a lot of molasses. Word is you could smell the sugar in that molasses boiling and cooking. He had donkeys, cows, okay? He had all form of livestock, and he would use those beasts of burden in order to mechanicalize his equipment so that he could make and produce his molasses. That's what he did. Now, his son, my grandfather, was born 1891, was a farmer as well. But he was more of a farmer that dealt with the milk from the cows. He had a lot of dairy cows because he was also a produce man, and he had his own store. So all the produce that they grew and cultivated, he was selling his store, as well as his milk and the other products that came, dairy products that came from his farm. Okay. Now, they say things skip a generation. By the time my dad was born, my grandfather's son, my dad was already up in Chicago. Okay. My dad was in Chicago, way, way from the farm. And my dad, he wasn't really raised on no farm. And he was raised in the city. So by the time I was born, my dad moved from Chicago to Oakland, California now. Now, by the time I'm born, I'm about as far away from a farm as it's going to be. But I'm tell you something. I always, and how we was raised, even though I'm in the hood, for anybody that's been raised in the hood and know about hood living, it's very tribal. Right there in your own hood, it's very tribal. And the generation that I was born in the '80s, most of the adults was from the South. Most of our adults was from the South. You might get one or two that was actually born in the city, depending on usually around the baby boomer, around the age, the 50s and 60s, you might have been born in the city, but most folks born in the 50s and 60s out of our people was also born in the South and had to migrate to these places. So there was always a southern flair, even though we was in the inner city. So I always felt like I belonged down south, even though I was in the Bay. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, as a grown man, I'm on the land. Okay, I'm on the farm. I'm on the land, and it's so wild to me that that inheritance genetically, it stayed alive within me, so much so that I had to leave the city now that I have the ability to do so and get out there on the farm, on the land. And that's where I am now. And so that inheritance of tending to the animals, tending to the livestock, being a part of a rural environment, separating from the concrete jungle, even though that's where I was raised my whole life. This is the first time I've ever been out of the Bay. So thinking about that, right? And seeing how strong that pool is, it also goes back into how the lion in the zoo is going to grow that mane, regardless of if it's in Africa or not. The lion is going to pride up. The lion is going to begin to smell the air and want to hunt. The lion is going to be able to roar. It's going to roar. It's going to do what it do because it's still a lion genetically. And even though it's been removed from its natural environment, it still was in its natural environment, genetically speaking, longer than outside of its natural environment. What does this have to do with Torah? You see an upsurge in our people waking up daily like nobody business. No matter how many people of of other groups try to say this is a farce. They try to say that we are lying. They try to say that we're being deceitful. They're trying to say that we aren't the true people of the book. Nobody in truth can refute the fact that we are waking up, and it has nothing to do with a trend. It has nothing to do with this being the new popular thing, because our elders, the ones who have been speaking this truth, was speaking this truth on the plantation. We came over here with many of our Hebraic names, and those names were exchanged for Eurocentric names. This is, if you go to slavevoyages.org, I put in the slavevoyages.org. Go to slavevoyages.org after this lesson, or you can pull it up now. I'm not telling you how to do. Go look at slavevoyages.org and read the manifestos of all of the people who were brought in from a certain time period. It takes you about 30 minutes to really get a feel for the platform, but it's doable. Read the manifestos. You're going to see European people owning the manifestos, writing the manifestos, and you're going to see all of the African, so-called African people who were put onto those ships. And you're going to see a series. I'm talking about a long line of Hebrew names. Hebrew names are going to be listed on those manifestos. And they're not names that the European gave our people. These are the names that our people knew themselves by. And when it was time to take record of who was who, the European is the one who wrote them names down in the manifesto. The point of sharing that part of my personal life with you is this. Even though I was raised in the city, the desire to be a farmer and the desire to cultivate crop and tend livestock and to raise my family in a rural environment was very much stronger than it was to maintain a life in the city. That didn't happen by mistake. There is no coincidence. Now, when you take the fact that within me is more generations of living in rural, wilderness, farm like environment than it is even living in the city, because keep in mind, in Africa, we built our civilizations up. We built our lands up in a certain way where our wealth was first of all identified through family, and then identified through livestock, and then identified through our crafts and our trades and what we were able to do to keep our society flowing, okay, and to keep everything in house. That was Torah. So once we got removed from that environment and we were placed in a land of our captivity, all of our craftsmanship, all of our trade abilities were then leveraged by our oppressor and captors to build up their system in society. This is why they didn't just go and grab any old person from Africa. Okay, they grabbed the smartest of the smartest. They grabbed people who were skilled at everything that we did. Okay, if we weren't skilled, there's no way we would have been able to build this country. We would have fallen by the wayside. But this is what I'm saying. Torah was passed down through our blood. Torah, to keep it, was passed through our genealogy. So much so that even though we appear to be taken from it all of these years, guess what? Now our genetic remembrance is activated. And there's nothing that can stop us from wanting to do the thing that the Most High originally called us to do in our trade, in our inheritance. If you would have told me that I was going to be sitting up here on YouTube, I remember when YouTube hit. They talking about it like in 2003, 2004, and then in 2005 we started considering it as far as for music videos and that sort of thing was concerned. But I was looking at it, I was like, man, ain't no way this thing gonna be big. Like, that was just me talking because the technology hadn't caught up yet. Our cell phones, we were still on them Nokia phones. The camera phone was just now starting to be popular. People would definitely wasn't no FaceTime and nothing like that. So to think about how we was gonna advance all the way to today, where we could actually use YouTube to speak and communicate with, that wasn't something that was popping in 2005, right? But to sit here today and say that, wow, I'm using YouTube for something I never would have thought I was going to use it for, because even that was using videos and tape. I I haven't used this video as entertainment. I think I have one music video. Okay, as far as entertainment goes, if you want to call my music entertainment, truth attainment or something, truth attainment, that's what I would consider it to be. But nonetheless, my purpose is to deliver different lessons about the scriptures, right? I would have never thought that, is my point. And I'm not the only one. There are thousands of brothers out here and sisters who never would have thought that a time would come when they would be activated to want to teach the truth in this capacity and what it actually is and what the scriptures are actually saying. You could ask any of us. We never really thought this. So, what does that story of my personal life, what I'd learned from my grandparents and my great grandparents is documented in the census, and the work of Torah have to do with all of this? And what does that have to do with the woman? And definitely, what does that have to do with an egg? Well, Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 through 6 tell us this. And now, if you diligently obey my voice and shall guard, listen to these key words, y'all. And now, if you diligently obey my voice and shall guard my covenant, then you shall be my treasured possession above all the peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a reign of priests and a set apart nation. Those are the words which you are to speak to the children of Israel. That is a very powerful two verses, because not only does it tell us how we were chosen and set apart by the Most High, it tells us why we were set apart and chosen by the Most High, and then it also details our purpose within that being set apart, our trade, our inheritance, what we were to actually do and be while being set apart. So, what was our position and role once we were chose to be set apart? Our role was to be priests. Priests. The men were to be priests, and the men, women, and children collectively were to be a set apart nation. Okay. A set apart nation means that we are Kodesh. Okay. Kodesh is Hebrew for set apart. That means that what the rest of the world is doing and involved with, we would be separated from the world in order to maintain our purpose while on the earth. So, when we talk about segregation and integration of the civil rights movement, for instance, one of the biggest mistakes that we ever made was pushing where the oppressor was pulling. Okay. No, excuse me. That's not the point I want to make. We were pushing when the oppressor was pushing, and we were pulling when the oppressor was pulling. Okay. Instead, we were supposed to do like the Japanese martial art, Aikido. When the oppressor pulled, we were supposed to push. When the oppressor pushed, we were supposed to pull. And we were never supposed to fight for integration. We were segregated, and in segregation was our power. That's a side note. I think most of us in my generation are seeing the power of segregation more than ever. Now, does segregation mean that we could not do business with other people? No, that's not what it means. But segregation means is we would take the time and the effort to build up ourselves before doing business and conducting business with other nations. Because once we built ourselves up, we would be able to conduct business and to do business with other groups and other nations on our terms, and we wouldn't have to do business and deal with business relations on the terms of those who we were integrated in with. Now, in order to be segregated, we learned in this country that that would also be a sign of war whenever we are talking about the so-called black man, woman, and child. Okay, so that's the caveat and the catch to being segregated in this country as an Israelite. When you're segregated as a Chinese person in this country, oh, it's just fine and dandy. When you're segregated as a Pakistani in this country, it's fine and dandy. When, when you're segregated as an East Indian in this country, it's fine and dandy. When you're segregated as a Russian or a German or an Italian in this country, it's fine and dandy. But when you're segregated as an Israelite, a so called black person in this country, that's the biggest threat. That's the biggest problem. And so, to get back to the narrative of today's lesson, we were to be a reign of priests. Now, what is a rain? Not rain falling from the sky, but a reign, as in REIGN. A reign is a continuance of position. A reign is a continuance of power. There was power in being the priest of the set apart nation because the power lies or retains itself within the word that the priests were supposed to uphold and teach. As long as we were connected to the power of the truth, to the power of the law, statutes, and commands, we would have the reflection of power distributed through our nation, therefore being the actual lights of priestliness to the rest of the world. That was to be our original calling. Excuse me, priest is what we were to originally be as far as occupation is concerned. When I was first born, one of my great uncles, my mom's side, so this would be my mom's mom, who is my grandmother, her mother's baby brother. Okay. So my mom's mom's baby brother. So my great grandmother, my maternal great grandmother, baby brother, who is my great uncle. Now, Uncle Eddie was my guy. It was a blessing that I was born just in time to meet that man. And he passed away when I was 7 years old. So I had him for 7 years. And this is my great uncle. My great grandmother already passed away. Okay. My great grandmother was already gone. My great grandfather was already gone. But on my mom's side, okay, and my great grandparents on my dad's side was gone too, because they was born in the 1800s. But my great grandparents on my mom's side, they were born. Uh, oh snap, they was born in the late 1800s too. Okay, keep it real with you. But the point is, my great uncle was still alive. Okay, and when I was first born, he told my mama, he said, that boy got a pre-head. That boy got a preach head. Now that's a little boy. I had one of them hook heads. You know the hook head look like this. You know us. We be having hook heads. So I get my taper. I get my clean fade, and my little hook head just be right there like that. And he said I got a preacher's head. Now, be born in the crack era and be raised throughout the '90s. Have been a gangster rap. That's the last thing that you want to hear as a little black boy in the ghetto. You don't want to hear that you finna be a preacher one day. And so I never really thought of the validity of that statement, but my uncle knew what he was talking about. He knew what he was talking about. And so now, as I've matured into this young man that I am today, it's amazing to me how his prophetic eye that he was blessed with is playing out in real time. Like I said, I would have never thought I was going to be on YouTube talking about the things of the Most High and talking about them the way I talk about them, the way I'm led to talk about them. Like I know what's on you, I know what's going on, but to make myself this way is something that I give thanks and praise for. Okay, so the Most High told us that we were to be a reign of priests, of reign. That means that we were going to continue generation after generation after generation after generation, and we would be the inheritors of that special and divine task. The rest of the world was going to have to deal with us as the men of Israel, who were the priests of Israel, if they were to learn the Torah. Now, we all can agree that we fell away from our purpose. And we began wanting to chase after being like every other nation on the planet and what they was called to do. We wanted to do this over here. We wanted to do that over there. It was almost like we were ungrateful children who come from a long line of craftsmanship greatness. But for some reason, we don't want to do that no more. You know those children who have a long line of woods craftsmanship in their family, or their family is lawyers, and they like, you know what? I don't want to be a lawyer, mom. I think I want to be a stripper. And it's like, whoa, baby, what you talking about? You come from a long line of folks who know law, and this is what we do. Or he don't want to be a lawyer no more. He want to go out there and sell dope. He want to be a crack dealer. But he don't even come from that. He don't come from that. He come from lawyers and people who know the law, right? And I'm talking about societal law. Well, we come from priests. We come from lawyers too. We come from a set of people who understood what it meant to rightly divide and judge the nation of people that we belong to based off of their what inheritance of the laws, statutes, and commands of the Most High. See, Christianity has really duped us in the sense that we think that this is just a bunch of words. We think that this is a bunch of words. And just like a lawyer has to go to school for multiple years in today's society and pass what's called the bar exam in order to get their lawyer license, in order to be a practicing lawyer, us as young boys and children were supposed to learn this law from the outset. We were supposed to learn it from the very beginning. So by the time we became men, we would begin to dispense the law in spirit and in truth. This was what our purpose and our calling was to be. Now, just like a lawyer in modern time has to go through all of that work and all of that trouble, learn modern day judicial practices and modern day judicial law in order to be an active lawyer, that is their calling, that is their trade, that is what they do. And if they're not careful, they can be what? Debarred, meaning they can be taken from active status as a lawyer and can be back into normal society as though one who has not never practiced law. That is, in a sense, what happened to us as a nation. And that is, in a sense, what happened to us as men when we began to devalue the law, statutes, and commandments. This is not just a series of words that have been formulated and placed together for our enjoyment and entertainment. The law, statutes, and commands are our actual bylaws and constitution by which we were to live and operate under in order to keep what? In order to keep justice and right rulings through our nation. Okay. When people ask me, or when I'm questioned about, hey, I got this organization or that organization, or even on my land right now, the farm, right? I'm like this. When it comes to any sort of legal status or anything like that, and I have formulate bylaws or anything, as a Hebrew Israelite man, why would I take the time to try to formulate some form of bylaw, some form of law, some form of judicial practice or prowess on my land when all I need is right here? If we are not operating under the statute, laws, and commands and ordinances of the Most High, then we not operating. Not over here. Not over here. Not on this side. I don't need to know what the Constitution and the 15th Amendment is saying and all of this. I know we are in the place of our captivity. And I know that there are laws that have to be upheld in this society. Like if it says 45 miles per hour, that's the speed limit, you go 45 miles per hour. But when you are living as a sovereign, as the king that you were meant to be, or as the queen that you were meant to be, and you are separated from society and you're doing what you need to do on your land, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Especially in Hebrew Israelite, you go back to the Torah, you go back to the law, statutes, and commands of the Most High, and you remember what those are. You study what that is. You integrate, reintegrate all of those law, statutes, and commands and ordinances back into your daily being because now you're out of Babylon. Now you're outside of the throes of modern day society. That doesn't mean you become lawless. That doesn't mean that you become an anarchist. It's quite the opposite. Now, for the first time in your life, you have the opportunity to maintain your culture. Now, for the first time in your life, you have the opportunity to live within your most high divinely given inheritance without threat of those who are calling you crazy, because they're gonna call you crazy regardless, but actually looking at you saying, oh, you're off your rocker. You cuckoo for cocoa puffs. What are you doing talking about keeping the law, statute, command? Talking about the Ten Commandments? Nah, brother, I thought that was done away with. You talking about the law, statutes, and commands, and Christianity you say was nailed to the cross? No, no, that's done away with. No, it's not done away with. It's not done away with at all. It's not done away with. Again, for all of the new supporters to this channel, thank you for joining. But we have to remember that to love the Most High is not about lovey dovey romanticism. Okay. For too long, being in the Western society, now, when we say Western society, we're talking about Western European frame of thought. Western European frame of thought is so gaudy and bold that it propagated itself throughout all of the world. And this is why Babylon is everywhere. The systematic vibration of Babylon is felt in every nook and cranny of the world for the most part. Now, I know we still got those hidden pockets in the Amazon and in certain islands of the sea that have protected and kept away from the throes of Babylon. But let somebody find out where they are and that they exist. And pretty soon you're going to see skyscrapers and you're going to see Babylonian government in modern day times popping up in their place as well. So Western mind, that idea of romanticism is something we desperately, as Hebrew Israelite people, have to leave alone. The idea that love is an emotion and not an action is something that we desperately have to leave alone. Okay, that's why in our communities, look, we Hebrew Israelites. Remember that famous scene? It was what's that called? Is it called Fences or Picket Fences? The one that originally starred James Earl Jones, and then Denzel Washington came back and they remade the film. And the son is talking to Denzel Washington, and I remember the scene from James Earl Jones because it was way more powerful when James Earl Jones was doing it. But the son said, "Daddy, Easy fences. Fences. Thank you, Mama Carolyn. So you remember fences. And I'm gonna paraphrase. But he said, Daddy, you don't love me. Daddy, you ain't never loved me. And his father said, Son, do you not have shoes on your feet? And I'm paraphrasing. Do you not have a roof over your head? Do you not have food to eat? Do you not have a bed to lay down in? Do I not go to work every day to make sure you have all of these things? Son, I don't know what you talking about, but that's love. So the son was expecting some modern day lovey-dovey emotional, hey baby boy, I'm gonna hug you, and we gonna tiptoe through the tulips, and your daddy loves you, and all this. When in fact, the father of that household was so busy providing the provisions that the child and the mama needed, that the dad and he didn't really have the mental capacity to then go on want to confirm that love through vocalization. Okay, it was enough for the father of that household to act and to move within love, as opposed to just sitting back saying, "Son, I love you" all the time, which would have been cool as a confirmation for the boy. That would have been cool. But the fact of the matter is, the dad had to remind that son that it was the action of him as a father providing these things, dealing with oppression, dealing with the civil rights movement, dealing with being knocked down as a so-called black man day in and day out, being accused of this, being accused of that, being first fired and last hired, or last hired and first fired, going through all of those situations in order to make sure that the son had the provisions that he needed to have. Okay, so that's another sign, we Hebrew Israelite, because we have to go from romanticism, which is a Western European idea, into, or romantics, into the Hebrew antics or Hebrewism. Okay. And this is very, very important, y'all. This is very important. The only way we're going to actually realize the value of Torah is if we go back and recognize the value of the calling. Now, we talked about the work. The work. Okay. The work is the Torah. Okay. Now, what's one thing that really sticks out about this promise Yah promised to the children of Israel through Moses. Verse 5 says, if you diligently obey my voice. Now, what does it mean to be diligent? Is diligent an emotion? Is diligent is an action word, it's a verb. But it can also be a descriptive word as well. But it's an action verb. It's an action word. It's in the act of doing something. When I'm diligent, I'm actively working towards something, an effectual end. I'm diligent in that thing. I'm diligent in that work, okay? It's purposeful. Diligent, diligency, to be diligent is to be purposeful, to move toward an effective end. Okay. Now, the Most High tells us in verse 5, if you diligently obey, obeying is the act of taking in instruction and following through what that instruction declares to us. If you, listen carefully, y'all, diligently obey, not just obey, diligently obey my voice. And this is the kicker for me. Some of your translations will say, keep my commandments. The translation that I like out of the ISR, the scriptures, the Institute for Scriptural Research, this version says, guard my commands, my covenant. Now, what's a covenant? A covenant is an agreement made between two parties, and that agreement is established in order to reach a certain goal. There are rewards and consequences when a covenant is broken. The agreement. In other words, we would call a covenant today a contract. We see what happened with Brother Ye in his multiple contracts when he began to tell the truth about who we are. He didn't do it fully. We don't got to get on that. But he did enough to spark a fire within the minds of everybody who questioned who we actually were as a people, which was all we need to ask for right now as far as waking up, as far as reclaiming our identity, our heritage, our divine inheritance. Now, same thing happened with Brother Kyrie, right? He got out there. He was signed to a multi-year contract, and I think they're trying to get rid of him now, even though he's playing. But he's playing at such a rate where once the New York, who is it, the Brooklyn Nets, once they get rid of him, his stock is going to rise. I don't even think he's in his prime yet. Okay, so his stock is still rising. Another team would be way pleased to pick him up. It's all said and done as long as he follows their contractual agreements and doesn't get out in there and start sounding what they consider to be loopy and cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? Now, check this out. The word that really stuck out to me, though, was guard. Now, typically speaking, the guardianship to guard something is typically an objective or an occupation that is given to men. This is why we see that if we guard the covenant, okay, or commands, not only will we be seen as a treasured possession to the Most High, but we will be seen as priests. Now, this is why I say to the men, the scripture doesn't say priestess, which is a woman, it says priest. Now, when we talk about the strength of a nation, we're talking about the physical protective strength that is brought forth through a man or masculine energy, right? Now, this is where I need my sisters to really pay attention to this, because I'm going to drive this point home. All right, my brothers, I need you to pay attention to it too. But there's going to be different perspectives on the attention that I'm asking. Okay. Now, from the masculine perspective, we are to guard the covenant. Okay. That's something that a man does. A man stands guard. Normally, in ancient societies, except for our sisters of, I believe, Dahomey, okay, and the so-called Amazonian women. I think they just tried to make a movie out of that historical fact and narrative called The Woman King or something like that. I heard it was all twisted up though, but nonetheless, there was a rare instance where we saw a woman being soldiers and guards. Well, typically speaking, that wouldn't be the case, and the men would be the ones guarding. But what is a man guarding? What is a man guarding? In this particular instance, we're guarding the Torah, the government, the covenant, right? Now, If we were to guard this covenant successfully, we would be seen as the treasured possession above all peoples on the earth, because the earth is the Most High's, right? We would be priests and a set apart nation. Now, this is what gets me. When you look deeper into Torah, Torah is yara. It comes from the root yara. Now, yara is a feminine word. Okay, yara is feminine in nature. Now, check this out, y'all. This is where this lesson has to be driven home. We're talking about Torah, we're talking about the woman, and we're talking about the egg. Now, I took a moment to grab the egg. Y'all didn't know I had that next to me, did you? Look, I'll show you again. See this egg? All right. I grabbed an egg because this egg is very delicate. Let me hold it up. This egg is very delicate. It's a raw egg, too. It's not boiled. If I drop this egg, we're going to have some problems. Okay? We're going to have some serious, serious problems if I drop this egg. Okay? Now, there was a quote that I wanted to grab real quick. If you don't mind, give me a moment and let me grab this quote. Oh, you know what? I might not be able to grab it from this way. Uh, Let me see if I can pull up one more thing. Y'all give me one moment. Let's see. Let me go new window. They might sign me out altogether if I try to do that. Maybe not. If hopefully this works. All right, let's see. Y'all still with me? All right, everybody still with me. All praises. Let me grab this quote real quick. And we're going to drive this point home because what us men have to do is get back to a sense of seriousness in regards to our original calling. Okay. And in order to do that, we have to find value in the calling. Remember, right now, most of us are just like that son who, for whatever reason, didn't appreciate his trade that he inherited. Okay. He didn't appreciate it. And because he didn't appreciate it, he sought other trades to work in that went against his family lineage. Okay. We could even go into the book of Deuteronomy. Before we read this quote, I want to show you the theme because I promised you that there would be a theme of the scripture we are reading. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. They state this. And this is the command, the laws and right rulings, which Yahweh, your Elohim, has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you fear Yahweh, your Elohim, to guard all his laws and his commands, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your lives be prolonged, or that your days, excuse me, and that your days be prolonged. Let me read that again. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. Because, see, I know our women, all of us want a role, right? All of us want to be seen as something special. The fact of the matter is, being an Israelite is about as special as you can get from a human perspective in the eyes of the Most High. We just read about that in Exodus chapter 19, verse 5. Then you shall be my treasured possession. A treasure is something that you hide and keep very close above all the peoples. And most people be like, well, how does that make you so special? Well, first of all, we're not the ones who created the earth. The Most High created the earth, for all the earth is mine. So the Most High says. So what the Most High feels and thinks about us is the Most High's prerogative. It's the Most High's business. We could have been born fish if that's what the Most High wanted. Okay, could have been born a fish. So accept the fact that you was born as a Hebrew Israelite and begin to cleave unto your calling is the point, one of the points. But listen to this. How do we know that the Most High is talking to men in pertinence to guarding the law, statutes, and commands? Here we go. We had one hint when the Most High mentioned a reign of priests. Priests are men, okay? In verse 6 of Exodus chapter 19. But in Deuteronomy chapter 6, we're going back into the trade of keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. The idea that this is something of an inheritance that can be passed down from generation to generation to generation. And this is the command, the laws and right rulings which Yahweh, your Elohim, has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you fear Yahweh, your Elohim, to guard all his laws and his commands, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days be prolonged. So you see, isn't that a great inheritance? Isn't that a great thing to pass down through the lineage? Isn't that a great occupation to be a priest of the Most High? And what will happen if one of the generations should falter? Well, they say it only takes one generation or two generations to be removed from a person's lineage before they forget who they are. Now, if that thing is removed early on in the lineage, then by the time the latter lineage come, it very well might not be written in stone or written in the genetic remembrance of that individual who's born later on. However, our people were very, very heavy. Even though we fell away, for multiple generations, we worked hard at keeping the law, statutes, and commands. And there were always a small pocket in every tribe who did just that. Remember, we did a lesson covering the fact that just because two or three or 100 of us was keeping the law, statutes, and commands, those two or three or 100, even though they were doing the right thing in the sight of the Most High, they were still included with the majority of our people who were not. A parent who's going to punish everybody, punish one, a lot of times all of them got to get the punishment. And so that's what happened with our people. Yes, we had those who were doing right, but it was not the majority who were doing right. Therefore, it was too many of us to have to sort out. And we all going. We all going. And all for one, one for all. That's why even though your brother True Jew is up here teaching the truth and doing his best to keep his family in line with the truth, and you have other brothers who are doing their best to keep their families in line with the truth, guess what? We still haven't woken up as a whole to what it means to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. So guess what? We're still in the places of our captivity. But time is almost running up. This is what we're desperately trying to keep uh, our people in recognition of today in 2023. We're saying, look, we know like you, we could be on the football game, we could be in the strip club, we could be in the club, we could be tossing up the dollar bills and making it rain, we can be out here acting a fool, we could be out here getting ratchet, we could out here be turning up, doing all this stuff. Duh. Look, I'm still in my youth. Of course, I could be doing that. But sacrificing all of that out as if it's a sacrifice I'm losing out on. No, 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 no. Ain't nobody holding no pistol to my head to do this. I want to do this. And as soon as we all want to do this, and the majority of us want to be back how we were, want, and I don't mean the idolatrous version of how we were. I'm talking about the truth, the standard of righteousness to how we were. When the majority of us want to get back to that, oh my goodness, y'all, that last trumpet is gonna blow. We gonna be gathered out of our captivity, but I think we addicted to it by now. See, the majority of us are addicted to this captivity. The majority of us are addicted to being victimized. The majority of us are addicted to the narrative of saying this happened to my forefathers. We was on them cotton fields. We the ones who got put on them slave shit. We the ones who been oppressed. We the ones who had to go through civil rights. We the ones who had them canines sicked on us. We the ones who had the fire department blasting us down with fire. We the ones who in the ghetto. We the ones who in the hood. We the ones who last to be hired and first to be fired. That sounds good. And it's addictive after a while. because we want to be the ones who get the sympathy of everybody in the world. Until we make the addiction the part of the narrative that says why we the last to get hired in the first fire, why we was on the plantation, why the canines were sick on us, why the water hose was blast on us, why we was the ones put on them slave ships, why we the one family was ripped apart, why we the ones who our women's was getting raped and our men's was getting raped and our men's was getting lynched and our women's was getting lynched and our legs was getting chopped off, our ears was getting chopped off, we was getting castrated, all these things. All right, that happened. Yeah, we shall never forget. But why? Why? Until we can see and recognize the supernatural, super spiritual, divine reasons as to why this happened and why we was made to survive through all of that. Ain't no other people on this earth could have survived through all of that either. Why was we getting put through that? But was also made to survive all of that. Just like when your pappy whoop your butt with that leather belt or that switch. Man, them lashes hurt. Feel like your little booty cheeks is finna get ripped off your legs, right? You don't want to sit down and you don't want to stand up. You just bouncing around crying, and then eventually, guess what? The whooping do nothing but correct you. Your legs ain't throbbing no more. Your booty is still where it need to be. You ain't got no booty meat hanging off. You know how we talk them hot pepper booty whippings. Okay? Nothing is wrong with you no more. The throbbing then went away, and hopefully you done learned your lesson. Right? Right? Come on now, for everybody that was raised like me. Come on now. Come on now. You know I'm not making this up. And then if you a boy, let that happen long enough where you a hard-headed little boy. Okay. And you need that form of correction. By the time you become a man, I guarantee you flying straight, I guarantee you're going to appreciate every one of them whoopers. And you're going to be able to stand as a man in the face of those who unrighteously call themselves punishing you. Because you know what a righteous punishment is. And now you know the difference between an unrighteous and righteous punishment. And now as a man, you don't got to worry about trying to run from nobody that think they want some funk with you. You've already been through it, and you can stand as a man. And standing as a man mean what? You can also guard yourself, you can guard your family, and you can guard everything that was put in your possession. Hence the point of this lesson. The Most High continues to lead us with a theme that we must guard all his laws and his commands. Now, any righteous man who has a woman, who has a family, who has a home, is going to want to guard his family. Okay? When you go into the Hebrew and you look at the word Torah, it comes from the root word yara. Yara is a feminine word meaning to teach or to shoot or to throw or to cast. Sound familiar? This is exactly how we were given the Torah, the law, statutes, and commands. The Most High is telling the men of Israel to guard the Torah because in nature, the Torah is feminine. The same way we are to guard the Torah because it is a feminine aspect of the Most High's deliverance of a form of divinity to the men, we have to guard it and keep it close as a treasured possession. The same way that if we guard and keep it close to us, the Most High will guard and keep us close to Him as a treasured possession. Our women and our children are often looked at or should be looked at as treasured possessions as well. Our women are feminine and they should be feminine in nature. It is only the modern feminist movement, which is actually an anti feminine movement, which enables the woman to encapsulate masculinity and toxic masculinity at that, which has thrown most of our women in modern day off to the point where our brothers say, man, why you can't be like Big Mom and them back in the day? Baby, why you can't be like your grandmother? Why you can't be like your great grandmother? Why are you up here trying to compete with me? We wasn't made exactly the same, baby. I'm 6'7". We wasn't made the same, baby. I got muscles and I'm strong and I be lifting things and I be moving things around. I'm chopping down wood. We not the same, baby. Why are you trying to compete with me? I'm a man. I'm not trying to compete with you. I wasn't put here to compete with you, baby. I was put here to protect and guard you. See the difference? I wasn't put here to compete with no woman. I was put here to protect and guard the woman. Okay? Us as men have forgotten that as a whole. And now you can go all through the comment sections on these videos on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever, and you can see men actually arguing and competing with women. We forgot what it means to guard the woman. And because most of us in modern time have now gotten so fed up with society, so fed up with who we are, a lot of men have forgotten the importance of guarding their children, even long suffering through situations that require their presence. So, guess what? Now, mothers are left to be single mothers and have to play multiple and dual roles in order to try their best to do something in a position and role that they wasn't necessarily created to do without the help of the man in the family unit, in the structure, in the home. Y'all see how the domino effect takes place? But to guard is normally a masculine position. Okay. So if Torah is looked as feminine, and we know our women are feminine, and our children, at the moment that they're conceived, are in the weaker vessel, both male and female, until they can come into their inheritance genetically as the humans who they were created to be in this incarnation, it is the man who is supposed to guard. And this is why the woman, the work, the Torah, the woman in the egg are so important. Now I'm going to hold up this egg and I'm going to read a quote to y'all. Some of y'all might have seen this video. It got real trendy on Facebook back in the day, and I was able to get the quote from it. So let me read this quote to you. It's a mama who had a son. I suppose she was a single mom. The narrative kind of pushed it out as she was a single mother. And if she wasn't, cool. If she is, blessings to her as well. And I hope that she able to get through this. But she said this, and I'm just going to read it. And I titled this, "The Woman is Like an Egg." I noticed my son beginning to take a notice of girls. I called him into the kitchen and handed him an egg. I told him to take this egg. Now run around the kitchen. He looked at me like I was crazy. I told him again, run around the kitchen with that egg. So he begins trotting, but I told him, run faster. So he begins to run faster. As he's running around the kitchen, I tell him to toss the egg into the air and catch it while he's running. He does what I say a couple of times, but then he stops because now he's getting frustrated. And he says, Mom, I'm going to drop and crack this egg if I'm not careful while I'm running around trying to do what you're telling me to do. Exactly, the mother says. When you begin to date, make sure that you treat that young lady's heart like that egg. Now, I remember that story from a few years back, but I didn't remember exactly how it was articulated. So I had to just get down the quote, and I wanted to share that with you. Now, what's up about this egg and woman? The Hebrew word for woman or wife is isha. Okay, the Hebrew word for woman or wife is isha. Now, this is very important, okay, because it delineates the role of man and woman when it comes to the physicality, the physical element of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. Now, the word Isha in Hebrew is often rendered into English as weak or fragile. Now, you would find Isha if you go on a website, and you have to be careful who you get these translations from because the Hebrew is very complex in how the contextualization of certain words is used. Now, a misogynistic or a machismo type dude, egocentric type dude, he's gonna be shy. And when he dominate over a woman, he's gonna use those first two definitions that I just shared with you. Weak and fragile. I don't like those words. I don't like weak and fragile in use of the woman is, especially our woman. Okay, I don't like that. See, the English is tricky because there are many synonyms to convey thought. But in Hebrew, there are many contexts that can be utilized for one word. So instead of using weak or fragile, you know the word I like, the word I love? I love the word delicate. Ooh, ooh, delicate. Don't delicate sound so good? Delicate. This egg, we know if I was gonna be a suck ale like in the bay, then I could easily say this egg is weak and fragile, and I could use those two words to convey what could be a truth. But that truth is only conveyed from the perspective of how I see this egg. But when I look at this egg as being something that's precious, that carries life, that life actually comes from to produce more life, I go from seeing weak and fragile, which are characteristics of this egg, depending on the condition of the person holding the egg or what condition the egg is in. Or I can say, this is delicate and it must be protected and it must be guarded because it is a precious and delicate form of life that can bring forth more life. See the difference? See how a simple change in mind frame can alter how we look at what we need to see and what's in front of us? Imagine if we did that with our women. You often hear men say women are the weaker vessel, right? I don't like that either. That's just me though. I don't like that either. I like the word delicate vessel because a woman is not weak at all. If anybody, this, listen, my Isha has given birth naturally, and this isn't no knock on to no other woman, none of my other sisters. But the way she was called to give birth was natural. This last birth that we had with the baby girl, oh my goodness. And I was there for I was there for all previous three, but never in the capacity of actually birthing, helping to birth my child. Okay. All praise to the most high. These hands brought that child out. And I'm whoo, woo. All right. Now I'm kind of being dramatic, but the point is that happened. And I was very grateful and still so grateful to be in that position as a dad, as a papa, to be having that on my book and my record as someone who is actually standing in as an OBGYN or a doctor and saying, listen, this is how our ancestors and ancestresses would have done it. And even back then, it might have been some midwives or somebody. The daddy would have been out there like pacing still. I'm just a kind of different dude like that. Okay. All praise to the Most High. So when it comes to the word delicate, however, I know that our women are not weak by a long shot. A woman has to carry that child in gestation for 9, 10 months, give birth and push that child out, creating whole new organs in her body to make sure that the child is having proper facilitation in her womb. Then she has to push the baby out oh so carefully. She doesn't want to tear, she doesn't want to hurt or hemorrhage herself. Oh, my word. Could no man do that? And as a real man, you shouldn't want to do that. You should feel the value and see the value in your woman for being able to do that. But that does not mean that she is weaker. That means she is delicate because she is holding the life force within her that you seek to match up with your life force in hopes that that vessel is created in her womb, which will then house the eternal spirit, breath of life within that particular home, which we call a body, a vessel, a vehicle, a car, a tent, a temple, and then it is birthed into this realm. And now you have an extra duty on your hands, man, because now you got to guard that woman and that child. Okay. But Isha is often rendered as weak or fragile. So, I don't like that. It's about delicacy. Now, the commands of the Most High must be guarded by his children, who usually are typified as men. We're all children of the Most High, people of Israel. But in the context of the scriptures, the children are usually the men of Israel. Okay, when we talk about the children of Israel, we're talking about the 12 sons of Israel. Okay, even though Dinah was a daughter of Israel, we're usually talking about the sons, the progeny of Israel, who then had sons and more sons and more sons. This is where the book of Genesis and the book of Chronicles, all of these books, when we talk about genealogy, come into being. Now, why is the Most High telling us to guard his commands, his laws, his statutes? And why are we asked to guard our women? Well, if the woman wasn't synonymous with the law, statutes, and commands, then neither one of them would be asked to be guarded. So the guardianship is the man's role. And that goes to show you how precious Torah is. That's why Torah, Yara, is associated with the woman. Because the woman is delicate and precious, just like Torah. Okay? So when we begin to guard Torah, we get into the mind frame of also guarding our wives and our children. Okay? This is very, very important. When we look at Torah as being fragile and weak, let me just use those characteristics real quick, which I don't like to use, but to help drill in this point deeper, my choice word is delicate. Okay? But fragile is something that's easily broken. Okay? If I wanted to call this egg fragile, rock with me in this analogy real quick. So let's look at this egg. This is a chicken's egg. Okay? When dropped from shoulder level, it's obviously going to break. If I drop this egg right, even maybe from this level, which I'm not going to do, but if I dropped it from my shoulder level standing up onto the ground, it's going to bust open. Period. Okay? Which would make someone say, well, there you go, brother. That's the fragility of the egg, right? But that was a purposeful drop, something that I did purposefully to prove a point. How many men purposefully uh, domestically abuse or hurt the so-called weaker vessel or delicate vessel, like I like to say, in order to prove a point? There's a lot of that going on, right? Just the same way I could drop this egg to purposefully prove a point. But does a mother hen purposefully drop her egg? No, because that's not a point that she's trying to prove. I hope y'all rocking with me on this. When a chicken lays her egg, and if we drop the egg shoulder level, it's obviously going to break once it hits the ground. When it is held at one's hand, let me see, how did I say this? When it is held in one's hand, even a child who exerts too much pressure onto the egg can crush it. So back to the boy Jaylani, who was in that example of the mother asking him to hold the egg and run around the kitchen and throw the egg up. He was afraid that if he ran too hard or he threw the egg in a way where it came down too hard into his hand, it would crack and he would break it. And perhaps rightfully so. But the mother wanted him to prove a point, or wanted to prove a point to him, that even though she asked him to run around and toss the egg up, in all of that, he was supposed to be aware enough to remain delicate in the handling of that egg. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Mama Candace, thank you for joining us. I hope all is well on the home front. Now, when this egg is held in one's hand, even a child who exerts too much pressure to the egg can crush it. However, listen to this, however, y'all. When a mother hen sits on her eggs, she is very careful not to break them, even though they are fully covered by her body weight. So, how is it that a mother hen can have 10 to a dozen to 13 eggs at a time that she's responsible for literally sitting on with all of her body weight in a way where those eggs retain the warmth that her original body held before they were uh, dispensed? Is that what eggs? Is that how eggs come into the world? Are they birthed into the world, or are eggs dispensed out of the mama hen? I didn't do the due diligence on that one, y'all. But eggs are dispensed from the mother hen into her little enclave, and then she covers them with her full body weight. Somehow that egg is not broken. Why? Because the mother is guarding. Now, this is where it gets kind of funny, because a mother is a feminine being, right? But she's guarding her eggs. Somebody could say, excuse me, somebody could say, well, brother, what about a hen? Because a hen is guarding her eggs. Yes, that's true. Laid. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you, Awakened Goddess. How did I know that? Laid. Okay. So the mother hen lays those eggs and she's sitting on those eggs, but guess who she's being guarded by? Guess who she's being guarded by? She's being guarded by that yard bird, by that rooster, right? It's the rooster whose responsibility is to guard the hen house, to guard all of the hens so that the mother hens can sit on the eggs in a comfortable and peaceful manner so that the eggs that she lays can then do what they need to do in order to hatch into chicks. Okay? Y'all rocking with the lesson? So, Isha, the woman, is not the weaker or fragile vessel. She is the delicate vessel. And she is a sign of Torah. Okay. Wisdom. That was the other name that I wanted to include in this study. Let me write that down because I'm gonna change or add that word to the title. Wisdom. And I want to do a whole study on wisdom. But in a nutshell, no pun intended, in an eggshell, wisdom is typified all throughout scripture as feminine. Okay. Wisdom was there at the beginning with the Father. Wisdom was there through the onset of creation. Wisdom was there when there was nothing but darkness in the waters and the void in the earth. And wisdom was there when man was first created. Wisdom was there when woman was first created. Wisdom was there when all of the animals and creatures of the field and the rivers and the oceans was created. Wisdom was there when thought was created. Wisdom was there when voice was created. Wisdom was there when vibration was created. Wisdom was there when essence was created. Wisdom there. Okay. Queen Carly, Queen Sister Carly, welcome to the live stream. It's a blessing to see all of y'all. So the point that I need to drive home is that when we understand our purpose as men, women, child, we understand that. And we understand that as Hebrew Israelite people, we were called not to be out here ripping and running in the street, not to be no rippers and no ripper slippers, not to be no pimp daddy driving a big caddy, not to be out here stripping on the pole, not to be out here serving up drugs and crack cocaine and all of that sort of thing. But we was out here not to be having an evil and hatred eye toward our brothers, not to be having an evil and hatred eye toward our women, not to be having an evil and hatred and eye toward our husbands, not to be having an evil and hatred eye toward our sisters, not to be having an evil and hatred eye toward our children, but we was called to be priests and a set apart nation. Now, when all of that blessings, when all of those prerequisites are met, then we can live within the confines of our own nation. And we will have an inheritance that is obvious to the other nations on the earth, that is respected for what it is. And as long as we keep the tenets of the calling, we will have all of the power and prowess to be able to guard and protect that very delicate possession that was given to us, to not only keep for one generation, but to keep throughout multiple generations as the prime occupation that we were called for originally. Okay? So that is how wisdom, the work, which is Torah, the woman, and the egg are related to one another. Okay? Once again, we're not talking about weaker. We're not talking about fragile. Because, when we say weak, weak is such a negative term. Weak is such a negative term, but how do we make weak a positive term? By saying delicate. Delicate is something that wants to be protected. Delicate, when you see something that's delicate, a man's nature is to protect that which is delicate and precious. That's a man's nature. That's in a real man. That's in a man's nature to want to protect that which is delicate. But what has society done? Our captivity has now made our women seek to not be delicate anymore. or to pick and choose when she wants to be delicate, right? One day she wants to be like a man and she wants to compete with a man. And then if she competes too hard with a man and the man gets to knocking her across the head, then all of a sudden she's a woman again. How many, how, y'all, I seen some MMA. I don't know if it was a skit. I don't know what it was, but I make sure I ain't finna be dealing with my daughters like this. I know this. The daughter, excuse me, she's somebody's daughter. The young lady gets into the MMA ring and she wants to compete with the guys in the ring. And it gets to the point where the one young lady gets up there and they fighting. Obviously, dude is taking it real easy on her. And then it gets to the point where she's like, "Oh, we could get this dude." She got a partner with her. So now both of them is teaming up on the guy. At first, they kind of get the upper hand because he's going lightweight on them, right? But then it gets to the point where they start trying to really get him. Like they trying to really get him, and you can hear him grunting and all this kind of that, like they really trying to get him. Dude had a flame on in order to protect himself, and the energy that I got from the guy, it wasn't like he was trying to protect himself because he was gonna be embarrassed. It was more so like, yo, I thought we was playing, and now you ladies is really trying to dog me out. So he had to flame on. By the time that whole excursion or that whole moment was done, the girls was tapping, and he had both of them in different leg holds and choke holds at the same time, and they was like, "Oh, we can't breathe no more." So I was like, "Hey, hey, hey, ladies, that is, well, I could fight a man if I want to, and then when the man really fights you with man strength and ball up that fist, look at my knuckles, and he get to going. What defense does a woman have, really? I seen another one where a woman was out there trying to play basketball and hoop with a bunch of guys, and it was the guys, and the women wanted the guys versus them, and the guys are taking it easy, not dunking on them, not crossing them over, just on some love and basketball type of stuff. Even love and basketball. Remember Q? Y'all, what was his name? Wasn't his name Q? No, that was Juice. My bad. He was Juice. I forget his name in Love and Basketball. But you know the famous bedroom scene where she like, well, if I beat you, what was it? They gotta still go together or something like that. Well, he didn't want to be with her no more, so he beat her bad. Remember, he dunking all on her, and he like, I don't want to be with you. When he wanted to be with her, he let her win and all this kind of thing, right? So my point is this: society right now, especially through that feminist movement, has tricked our women out of being delicate. Okay. And in order to trick our women, our men had to be removed from the equation as much as possible. And based off of the traumatic experience all of us felt at that point when the movement came about, our men almost did everything, almost folded, and our women took advantage of that situation in order to feel valued and appreciated in a society that, if it wasn't for our women in a lot of aspects, we wouldn't be here. If mama didn't say certain things on that plantation to protect son more than likely got lynched and hung before he was able to bring another generation in. Okay. So there are some cruel realizations about how we got here. Okay. But now that we're here, it's very important to psychologically unpack what's going on and spiritually unpack what's going on and not be afraid of the supernatural and the highly divinely spiritual aspects of our existence. Because, like I always like to say, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. They tricked us with that human being stuff. We are spiritual beings. Who you see on this screen right now is just my vessel. The spirit is my voice. Okay. The vibration that is coming through this vessel, the thing that is driving this thought that is coming out of me right now, that is allowing me to articulate something that I feel is important, deep, it's important to share with the family, is what is the spirit of the man. Okay. The spirit of the woman. Then you get into the actions of the individual, and those actions showcase the fruits of the spirit, i.e., the characteristics of who that individual truly is. What are the proclivities of that person behind closed doors? What are the proclivities of that person out in the open? What is the fruit of that person's being? The scriptures tell us, judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. Okay, so what we have to do is get back to a part where we actually realize, okay, this isn't a mistake, there is no coincidence. Yes, this happened. Cool. Now let's take the next step. This happened because. Cool. Now we know why it happened. Now we can begin to fix whatever it was to cause us to be put in a position, in a situation that we don't appreciate or necessarily want to rock with. Cool. Now, once we didn't identify how to get out of the situation, how do we protect ourselves from getting put back in that situation? This is where it always goes back to the divine connection with the Most High in regards to the law, statutes, and commandments. Without the law, statutes, and commandments, and recognizing and keeping and guarding them, honoring them, living within those tenets that were set apart for us to then be set apart with them, we will continue to be in a quagmire of different nationalities, of different national essence in the sense of their way of living. And we will always be relegated to the bottom because every nation who has taken advantage of us knows that we had a desire to want to be like them instead of wanting to be like us. I just saw something. There's a big TikTok thing going on as I say this about so-called white women being upset with sisters. What's it called? The black woman train or something like that, where sisters is running around here, hashtag black woman train, hop on the black woman train. And you got so-called white women being so at odds, upset with sisters about taking a sense of appreciation for who our sisters are, that now white women are being upset. Listen, can't nobody ever fool me about what our sisters had to go through. I'm a part of the generation. Remember, I told you I'm a crack era baby. I was raised in the 90s. I remember when Suzanne Summers and her thigh master was being nasty toward all our sisters, who was voluptuous and had them curves and had all of the curves that a brother liked. Okay. I remember a time in society when a white girl would say, Becky, look at her butt. Y'all remember that? Sir Mix-a-Lot? Oh my gosh, look at her butt. Y'all remember? I witnessed my sisters have to deal with coming to school one day with the two plait braids on the side of the hair neatly parted down the middle in the braids, and then the next day she come in with her box braids or something. And then the teacher busts out in front of everybody. Hey, Keisha, wasn't your hair just short the other day? How did your hair get so long like that overnight? Wow. I remember that. I remember when our sisters wasn't allowed to wear our natural hair out, they natural hair out and had to cover it with wraps. I remember when a sister's bottom was looked at as something that was derogatory. Even to this day, a sister gotta be careful what she wear. If she curvy and she gotta be careful because somebody gonna hate on her. I remember. I remember when our sisters had to deal with having our full lips, right? And everybody talking about your lips. And all of a sudden, having big lips is a good thing. It's always been a good thing. It's always been a good thing to have juicy lips. But in this society where we at, that's oh no. Oh, oh, oh. Right? So this is my thing, y'all. Don't ever get tricked out of your position and don't never forget what we had to endure. However, don't allow what we had to endure to make you a victim so much to the point where you become brackish and stagnant in your growth. Okay? Because there is another side to this. We are moving into the other side right now. We are moving into our natural place and our inheritance in righteousness. We're doing it right now. Right now it's happening. It seemed like it was just 2 days ago when it was the last Shabbat. And now we already out of this Shabbat, depending on where you at. Yeah, pretty much you out of the Shabbat. So now it's like, yo, the first of the week is here. Now it's about to be another week. We already what? Halfway through January already? It's gonna be springtime soon. We finna have to do our planting. We finna have to get ready for plant season. Yo, what's going on? The time is really flying by, right? So this isn't no lie when the Most High tell us that the days will be shortened. The days will be shortened. That means time will speed up. Time is going to speed up because we are in the time of the end of this kingdom. But if we're in the time of this kingdom, then guess what? We have something to look forward to. Those of the righteous walk, because that means a new kingdom is coming. All praise to the Most High, and that's something that we should all look forward to, right? So let me get you another example. Look, we got Deuteronomy. Let's just keep going real quick, and I want to bring out maybe a couple more verses in regards to guarding. All right, let's go. And I told you it's gonna be a constant theme, y'all. It ain't going nowhere. Um, let's go Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 17, where we read, diligently guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim and his witnesses and his laws which he has commanded you. See, I like that verse especially because now we're getting more so into what else we have to guard. Not only do we have to guard the commands, but we also have to guard the witnesses of the Most High and the laws which he commanded you. Okay, so that was our original occupation. It seems to be so easy. Oh, it seemed to be so easy. But we know ain't nothing in life easy. Not nothing worth having. It ain't easy. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 11 reads a similar tone. And you shall guard the command and the laws and the right rulings which I command you today, not only to guard and protect them as you would your women and child, but to also do them. So are you seeing? I hope y'all are seeing the relationship between wisdom, because wisdom is the Torah, wisdom is the law, statutes, and commands. But it took work on behalf of the Most High to formulate these set of law, statutes, and commands that would be considered the Constitution or the ordinances for his people, the children of Israel. Right? Then you have the woman who most egocentric, misogynistic guys would say are the weaker or fragile vessel, when the woman is really the delicate vessel. Because when we put delicate on that of a woman as a man, you naturally want to protect that which is delicate. Most look at their jewelry today and their chains and their gold teeth, their grills and their cars and their rims as being delicate. Oh, brother, you better not step on my Air Force Ones. I'm going to blow you to smithereens. That's my delicate possession. And the woman has lost total delicacy in the eyes of the man for the most part. And I know our brothers are waking up to this, but still you see the undertones of hatred and upsetness about a time that we were born into, which we might have could have controlled if we just did what we were supposed to do in our original occupation. Okay. We don't gotta hate mama. We gotta hate granny. We don't gotta hate sister girl. We don't gotta hate baby mama. We don't gotta hate wife. We don't gotta hate the woman. We don't gotta hate. No, we don't gotta hate our daughters. We don't. They're delicate. So we have to guide and protect them. Okay. But this is the thing though. We go, we look into Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 1. Guard to do every command which I command you today, that you might live. You see, when we guard the commands, when we guard the ordinances of the Most High, not only do we get to live, but we get to thrive. We get to be blessed in abundance. We get to have things. Ain't you trying to be having things? And you don't got to worry about having things that's going to get taken from you. What's the point of having things and everything is took from you? That's not fun. You want to be having things that you get to maintain and you get to enjoy and possibly get passed on to the next generation. Guard to do every command which I command you today, that you might live and shall increase. See, we talking about increase. We talking about abundance. We talking about wealth in all areas. I ain't talking about monetary wealth. I'm talking about the wealth of wisdom and understanding. Solomon preferred wisdom, the wealth of wisdom over the wealth of monetary gain. Why? Because a man can have all the money in the world and lose it and not have the wisdom to get it back. But when you have wisdom and you gain all the possessions that the earth has to offer and you lose it, guess what? You have the wisdom to get it right on back. Smart man want wisdom, and let all things be added unto him after that. I want wisdom. My brothers, seek after wisdom, and she can be found of you. Seek after wisdom as a virtuous woman, brothers, and she will be added unto you. So, see, we want to increase, but we want to be abundant. And we want to be abundant to the point that when we increase, ain't nothing finna come down and begin decreasing our increase. Okay? And go in and shall possess the land of which Yahweh swore to your fathers. Okay, and you shall remember that Yahweh, your Elohim, led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you. That's exactly why we've been placed into this captivity and wasn't utterly destroyed and killed. If we was utterly destroyed and killed, we would not have been humbled. There would not be nothing to humble if we was gone. So we had to get put through this. And remember, this past what we talking about here. So I like to go 1492. Okay, past 530 something years. Okay, that's a little over half of a day to the Most High. The scriptures tell us that a day with the Most High is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. Well, half of 1,000 years is 500 years. So if we've only been in this condition a little over 530 years, it's only been about a little over 12 hours and some change to the Most High. Are y'all seeing this? And if it's only been a little over 12 hours and some change, most of us men, most of us, some of y'all working swing shifts. Some of y'all working OT where you work 12 hours out the day. By the time you get home, it took you 30, 45 minutes to get home. There you go. That's a half a day in 30 minutes or so before you get back home. And you ready to lay it on down. So imagine getting you an opportunity to sleep for about 12 hours out the day. And then you wake up to all your children running amok, acting straight fool. Oh, you got some straightening out to do. You got some rights you got some wrongs that you need to right. What kind of parent wants to work all day, go to sleep for 12 hours out the day, go to work for 12 hours out the day, sleep for about 6, 7 hours out the day, so have to cook some food, do some laundry and all that sort of thing, get the house together, right? And your children out amok. That's gonna piss you off. That's gonna get you upset. Your children's supposed to know better than that. So imagine what we done did. And we a whole nation of people. You don't think the Most High don't see us? You don't think the Most High don't want to correct us and humble us to where we could receive correction and then move forward to where we don't ever, 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 ever do this again? Because we some hard-headed, stiff-necked summer somethings. Okay? And you shall remember that Yahweh, your Elohim, led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you, then to prove you. Okay? Listen, could nobody do what we went through? Could nobody do what we went through? Now that's something to be, I'm a glass half full kind of brother, so I would say that's something to be happy with. Do I want to go through it again? I'm good. So Israel, Yashrala, we need to get our stuff together. Cause I'm one of them ones. I learned my butt whooping. I learned the lesson. Now my brothers and my sisters still getting their butt whooped. And because y'all getting y'all's butt whooped, I gotta sit up here and still be punished too. Nah, I'm good off that one. I done did my punishment. So you see the drive. You see why those of us who understand the punishment are getting out here in the byways and the highways and the hedges, out and on the sidewalks, on the streets, and on the YouTube, in these YouTube streets, and these Facebook streets, these Instagram streets, and we out here saying what we need to say on behalf of the kingdom of the Most High, so that we can right these wrongs and get everybody in line. Because we the ones who tired of getting whooped. Some of us still like it though. Some of us then got addicted to the dopamine rush of getting that booty whipped, and I'm good off of it. I'm good off of it. I don't like that form of addiction. I'm good. But to humble you, prove you, to know what in your heart, whether you guard his commands or not. So what's in your heart, brother? Because listen, let me show you something. What's in your heart? What's in your heart? Because the Most High gonna figure it out. The Most High is going to figure it out. Most High is going to figure it out, y'all. What's in your heart is the question. Hold on. My bad. One of my little bookmarks come out. My whole Bible is filled with bookmarks. What's in your heart? Okay. Let me get something for you real quick. Let me get something for you real quick. For all of us who think we hide what's in our heart. Okay. Proverbs chapter 20. One of my faves. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 27. The spirit of a man is the lamp of Yahweh. The spirit of the man. That's the lamp. That's the light in your body. Now that same lamp is the lamp of Yahweh, searching all his inmost parts. So these inmost parts have to deal with your intent. Okay. This is why Yahweh says to make you know that man does. Oh, excuse me. That's verse 3. Deuteronomy chapter 8. I want verse 2. To know what is in your heart, whether you guard his commands or not. You think you hiding from the Most High? Please, I hope you don't think you hiding. You know, like them little baby who know they're supposed to be potty trained, but they still doing number twos in their pampers. The little baby try to hide in the corner and doing all this, and then look around like this, like ain't nobody seen him, and he just looking around. No, good on well, he's supposed to be going to ask to sit on the toilet, right? Acting like his like ain't nobody see him. Or the little baby that's sneaking in the cookie jar, but he looking at you like this, but the whole his hand over here, and he acting like as long as he look at you, ain't nobody gonna see him with his hand in the cookie jar. Y'all know that? So the Most High is seeing everything is my point. And it's a constant job. That's why the Most High asks us to be diligent. And to be diligent in keeping the commands. It's a constant thing. It's constant. All right. Well, I always appreciate the time that I'm blessed with and allotted to be able to chat with you all. You good and wholesome folk. You folks that want to see effectual change and seek daily to be the change that you want to see in the world. I love y'all to life. Y'all know that. It's something about us as we walk and as we continue to awaken that it really fuels me. And I hope that it fuels y'all too. You know, I'm about abundance. I'm about bountifulness. I'm about prosperity. I'm about those things that we search after and we all to a certain extent, but there's a but to it. I think there are prerequisites. 'Cause, you know, when I just mentioned wisdom, for instance, and I use the analogy of, you know, having all the money in the world but not having the wisdom to maintain it, or having all the money in the world and losing it but not having the wisdom that's going to take to get it back. None of us want to be abundant to lose it, because then it's like a dream. It's like a bad dream. It's like a sweet dream that turns into a nightmare, and that ain't never fun. You ever had a dream started off good and then turn into a nightmare and you end up waking up in a cold sweat? So that's not nothing that we necessarily want to deal with. So I hope that you want to be abundant too. I hope that you want to be bountiful too. I hope that you want to experience increase too. I think the bigger things in the narrative, part of victimization of our people mentally, is that in victimizing ourselves, we still need things. You know, we still need things, but the difference is when we victimize ourselves, we don't realize our value. We don't realize that we have the ability to get out of the quagmire that we're in. We have the ability to not have to have our hand out to those who are seeking our victimization to continue. Okay, I think that's one of the biggest things that get me about victimization and having a victim mindset is that in a victim mindset, you always looking for somebody to save you. You know, when you could sit up here and you could get a warrior mindset and you could begin to recognize that, yeah, I might have been in a victimized situation, but I don't got to stay in it, and I could warrior my way up out of this thing. You know, and that's something that as long as you walking with the most high, then ain't nobody gonna stop you. Ain't nobody gonna stop you. It's in the will of the Most High. It's gonna happen. But you want to rise the Most High. You want to seek the divine will of the Most High. You want to ask the Most High that this is one of my prayers for myself, my family, is that, and I won't. I'll just paraphrase the prayer. Is what I'm saying. You know, I ask that the Most High set my heart and my family's heart to want to do the law, statutes, and commandments. Okay, and I ask that the divine will of the Most High is so merciful covering this home and this family that it includes us not being led down paths of wickedness, but down paths of righteousness. Because the Most High gonna decree whatever it is. So I hope that what is decreed is that my family and I are led down paths of righteousness, not for our sake, but for the Most High's sake, to show and represent the glory, long suffering, mercy, and gratitude or graciousness throughout the creation, who is us, part of us, because there's other creation. You got the trees, and but I'm talking about as men and women and children to be able to showcase that divine inheritance to hopefully steer the hearts of those who witness it. I would rather folks ask me, hey, brother, why you walk the way you walk? Why you talk the way you talk? Meaning, you could be doing anything right now, bruh, but you choosing to be this way. What's going on? What's your motivation? Oh, the Most High, my inheritance, keeping the law, statutes, and commands, and being so caught up in the reverence of the Most High's power that one false move, you know how we say in the hood, one false move, brother, it's a wrap. So my whole thing is not making those false moves, but hoping that the divine will as it regards to my life is something that I can actually endure through, that I have the strength to endure day to day in order to keep up the work. Okay. And so I could pray that and I wish that and hope that for all of you. But this the catch. You have to want that for yourself. Okay. You have to want that for yourself. Anytime Yaibasha asks somebody if they wanted healing, he always asks if they believed. He always asks if they believed before he healed them. Because it works both ways. A person has to believe they can be healed in order to receive the healing power of the one doing the healing. Okay. We have to believe that we can be taken from place in a whole capacity. And that belief has to then grow and expand into knowing. Once you know something, can't nobody steer your belief about it. You know it to be. And so that's what we want to do. We want to be able to know. Okay. And so I think that exercises like this of sharing insight and sharing perspective, especially on what we construe the truth to be, is something that's important for those of us who are weaker in our belief to get stronger in our belief. And that strength multiplies so much that it becomes knowledge, and it becomes something that we know. Okay. And once we know something, it's a fire set in you, and you're gonna want everybody else to know what you know. If you're not a selfish person, if you somebody who seeks the liberation of others, I mean, is that selfish? I wouldn't think so. I mean, I wouldn't think so. It's all about the intent. What am I getting out of this? Well, I get to see my brothers and my sisters liberated and from a imprisoned mindset. Okay, I know the value of being liberated from that. So to want the same thing that I want for myself is what drives me. Okay. So to want to be able to share in that joy is what I want for my brothers and sisters too. And so that's what I get out of it, you know. That's what I get out of it. It's a joy, and to know that the family is being returned to our greatness. It ain't fun if the family can't have none. You know what I'm saying? So we want to make sure that everybody is taken care of, as they say in the military, present and accounted for. If one of us is here, then it ain't doing us no good if 100 of us is off by the wayside still. It don't do us no good. But when we all here and we all understand the power of being here for our own aptitude, our own self, because it means something to each one of us individually, it ain't nothing greater than that. And so we need to just stand strong, those of us who know, and we need to be patient, kind, loving, caring, gentle, meek. We need to be long suffering, because everybody, like the scriptures say, I ain't gotta say it. We some hard headed folk. We a bunch of grown children, grown babies running around here acting a fool. And it's worse when you're grown, because at least when you was a child, you have somebody who could threaten to whoop your butt. Now, when you grown in this society, you turn 18 years old and you ain't got nobody who's supposed to be whooping on you and you can do whatever you want. Oh my goodness. Mm-mm-mm. So let's get some respect back in line, and let's look at our elders. And elders, stop being afraid. Stop being afraid. Stop being afraid to speak out. I know energy levels, they wax and wane day to day, but hey, you an hour long video, do something. Get out here and be well rounded in your communication. Speak on the bad, speak on the good, speak on what it should be, speak on what it is. And this is something I learned from Lauren Hill, and I apply it to my music. Just all songs. Problem called solution. For too long I was making music where it's just, we talking about that ghetto stuff. It's problem, 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 problem. I might speak on the cause of the problem, but it's problem, 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 problem. It wasn't until I started getting liberated in my thinking where it's like, wait a second, what's the cause, the root of this thing? If I'm some kind of solution solver person, let's find a solution. So problem, cause, solution. And it don't gotta be in that order. It could be solution first. And then what's the cause of the problem that inspired the solution? Right? Get creative with it. The problem called solution. And one thing that's beautiful about our elders, especially today's elders, for you to be an elder, that meant that you've been through some stuff and you survived. If you an elder today, you'd have seen the Thiz generation, you'd have seen the ecstasy generation, you'd have seen the Molly generation, you'd have seen the crack baby generation, you'd have seen the heroin tar baby generation, you'd have seen, oh my goodness, you'd have seen civil rights, you'd have seen the Vietnam War, you'd have seen the Cold Wars, you'd have seen the Gulf Wars, you'd have seen the weapons of mass destruction, you'd have seen it all for the most part. You remember an era when it wasn't no cell phones. You remember the brick cell phone. You remember the two-way pager. You remember when the internet wasn't nothing. You remember when the internet tried to be something and it was dial-up. You remember America Online CDs that would come through the mail every week to get you to do 10 hours of online. Come on. You remember all of it. You remember all of it. You remember all of it. I hope you do. Don't sweep them things under the rug. So you can pull from multiple generations. You can pull from so much. That vault in the memory bank, oh, it should be filled with jewels. It should be filled with gems. It should be. And don't be afraid of sharing what you know. Don't be afraid. You just share it how your voice need to share it. You share it how you need to share it. Don't be afraid though. Scare man can't win. And with that, I'm gonna say domino. So thank y'all for joining today's live stream. I hope y'all are getting a kick out of new content. I really do. I hope y'all are getting a kick out of new content. Mama Kellen, shout out to you for appreciating that. We gonna keep on doing the videos like that. The Planet of the Apes is one that always got to me though, and it didn't hit me until it hit me a while ago, but it didn't really hit me to want to do the video um until I was looking at the movie again, and I was looking at some shorts on it, like not shorts, but um clips, not like YouTube shorts, but just segments of the movie. And so I was like, you know what? Let me talk about the original Planet of the Apes, because that's the one that I was raised on. And then that's the one that pissed me off as a little boy. And then you got the Mark Wahlberg one, the Marky Mark one, and that one was more kind of funny. Didn't really piss me off because I'd already grew up to know what they was on. Thank you. So we gonna keep on doing those videos. I got another one coming out, y'all. This one, this next one, nyah, nyah. So y'all just stay tuned for that. This next one, we gonna keep on moving them like that. Actually, I got a few videos, but the one is talking about two of them is gonna be getting back into the meaning of the Most High and the name of the Son and what the names actually mean. And then the next video is talking about so-called Neanderthals. Woo. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. So that one, we got a bunch of quick hitters. You feel me? We won't be left hooking, right crossing, and jabbing the mess out of this. So I thank y'all for joining the live stream today. Before I sign out, does anybody that been tagging along for this live stream have any questions for me? You're free to communicate through the live chat. Anybody questions for me? And if you don't have any questions for me, I never hold your peace. And I give you about 10, 15 seconds. Yeah, about 15 seconds to tell me your question. Answer your question. But the scriptures that we covered today are primarily Exodus and Deuteronomy. So if you go to blueletterbible.com or .org, I forget which one it is. If you go to Blue Letter Bible and you just put in the keyword of keep, because in most translations today, it'll say keep. But in this translation of the scriptures, the Institute for Scriptural Research, the word God is more applicable. And so when you remember that Torah is feminine in nature, and you want to be a masculine man, and you appreciate Torah, and you recognize the delicacy of Torah, and then you recognize the delicacy of the woman. And I didn't say delicacy, the delicate nature. Let me say delicate nature, not weak, not fragile, not easily broken, but delicate, as in needing to be protected and guarded. Then you will see the power of Torah even more, because Torah gives forth life, right? And what does a woman do? A woman gives forth, she births life. And it's synonymous with each other. Torah, the law, statutes, and commands, and woman. And then child. And that child matures. If it's a boy, he mature into a man. If that child matures and she's a girl, she mature into a woman. And hopefully, by the time the maturation process is finished, the child understands what his or her purpose is. Okay? So we working on this, y'all. We working to get back. We working to be the best that we can be. But we not going to give up. We not going to give in. We was born champions. We was made to win. It's your brother Chuju tapping in with you the only way I know how, raw, real, and uncut. Y'all remember to stay vigilant, stay blessed. Let's stay vigilant. Be a blessing to those who you meet. May those who you meet be a blessing to you. May goodness flow to you. May goodness flow through you. May you be abundant in all things good, all the days of your life. All right. I love you to life always. Until next time, most time, Mama Papa willing, I'll be back with another one. But until then, gone. And shalom to everybody. And thank y'all for joining.